Good evening, courtside viewers. We are sorry we had some technical difficulties. Apparently, they weren't limited just to here at my building, but perhaps there were some issues, larger issues with the server, as we did have a viewer indicate to us that they were also having difficulty.
Okay.
But today, what we're talking about is the um, mass shooting that occurred in Uvalde, Texas.
And
And
what we did know, we were talking about what we know for sure is we've got 19 little kids dead and two teachers, and that it wasn't, seems to be a racially motivated event.
seems not to have.
Or
Well,
seems
at this
not to.
point, we don't know, but the information that we have now, it does not seem to be based on racial hatred.
Correct. Which puts it back in a situation to where we've got to talk about guns in society and what people are doing with them, how they're getting them, and how it's impacting the ability to even put your kids in school. So, we know what we're talking about is an individual who apparently bought guns, waited the period of time, and received those guns, and did so at the age of 18, which is probably the legal age to purchase.
When you say waited a period of time, what do you mean waited a period of time?
Usually there's a 10-day waiting period or something before they
Does
give
that
it to you.
exist in Texas? We're
I'm
talking
not
about
sure,
Texas.
but but either way, if you get them, whatever the state law is, and you get them in 1 day or 10 days, apparently the age of 18 is the age that you can buy them without parental authority or anything like that. But buying them has never been the problem,
Well, he was 18, so he wouldn't have needed parental
right?
authority because he,
You can
the,
do it. You
the,
got the money,
the
you buy,
shooter,
you go in, you buy guns,
the shooter was an adult, a
and
young adult, but an adult all the same. And apparently, before he went to the school, he shot his grandmother.
now, so we're talking about an individual then with possibly mental issues, mental problems, or if not that, allegedly mad at the world type of thing, or wanting to do harm um, to himself and others merely from pure evil. Because some people act in that particular way. Some people act out of total irrational behavior. And so, what we have on the floor are 19 dead kids who were just trying to go to school. And I've heard commentators all over talk about what are we going to do? Who are we? And things like that. And they ask questions like that. And they're turning to their legislation and legislators in order to create something, to do something about these types of shootings. Now, I'll just tell you, I don't think you stop the shootings by stopping the sales of weapons. Um, I don't even know if regulation is actually going to prevent them from getting into hands of individuals who would do harm. Individuals can get guns in different fashions. We have ghost guns now out here where you can buy pieces and put guns together. You can buy them off the street if you needed to. People are burglarizing homes and stealing guns. So the fact that people have the guns has never been something we could ever control. We're going to let individuals have a gun. We use the Second Amendment in order to authorize that. The thing is, how do you stop mass shootings, especially on our schools? Because a lot of people will ask, what kind of nation are we whereby we have individuals who shoot innocent children? I heard even one person say, where in the world does this happen? If this is not a terrorist act done to terrorize the public, the government, or something, then what act is this? What do you call things like this? We tend to just say they're mass shootings, and from a person who's angry or disgusted. It's similar to what happened in Las Vegas, where an individual just decides to commit the act and does it. So,
So I
what
will
kind of,
note that
yeah,
it appears that there are no waiting periods in Texas from the time of purchase and the actual physical transfer of a firearm.
okay,
You noted that perhaps this was a person with mental issues. Again, the information that has been indicated thus far is that there were no diagnosed or no one knew of the person having any mental health issues. I think that we as a society think that in order for a person to go in and commit the kind of acts that were committed in this case, that that person must have a mental health issue. Certainly, we would like to think that someone who is in their rational right mind would not engage in such behavior, but we honestly don't know. What we do know is that there have been people who have been
In
um,
their right minds.
in their right mind who have
Buffalo.
decided to kill
That's right.
people. And so that may be the circumstance here. So I don't want to immediately go to their, mental health when we don't know that there were mental health issues with this person who committed this absolutely heinous crime.
But the discussion has to be made on still, everyone's asking the question, well, what do we do? And so, what is the answer? Is the answer that we pass gun laws that are stricter, and we do it in a nationwide fashion so that there is a waiting period, a checking period in every state, so that you can't buy the gun anywhere without any background check or any waiting period? Maybe that helps in terms of trying to get guns out of the hands of individuals, but there is no psychological testing done. There is nothing done. And when we talk about mental illness, sometimes mental illness is not diagnosed, especially in young males, until they reach the age of 18 or 20.
Or
And
sometimes never diagnosed.
right,
I mean, there are people who may not realize that they need mental health treatment.
right.
And we as a society, for so long, we're getting better, but as a society, for so long, um, we made it shameful for someone to admit that they had a mental health issue.
So they would hide in the shadows. They would hide their behaviors, and make it appear that it's something else that's going on, so that they wouldn't get ridiculed, so that they wouldn't get tested, so that it wouldn't be outed, and that they have some problem. So we've tried to put it at the forefront that it's okay to talk about those things. But let's just say he doesn't have anything. Then we're talking about an individual who walks into a school and shoots kids. And then you got to wonder why these kids, why at this time? Is that what's on his mind? And so there are no answers. There are no rational, I guess, things that we can tie our minds to make us understand what occurs. So ultimately, we're back to, are guns killing people or are people killing people? And our guns taking away the issue, the solvency.
Well, we know that legislating and making something a crime doesn't prevent that from happening.
Right.
So, for example, murder is illegal, it is a crime. Are there people who still get murdered? Yes, there are.
We would
So,
find,
just
yeah,
um,
the
the
behavior, yeah.
criminalizing the purchase of guns does not mean that someone won't have access to guns. We know that people get access to guns all the time. Now, what you will hear is the rhetoric about violent felons. This young man who did this was not a felon. My understanding thus far is that he had absolutely no criminal record. So I don't know quite
18, but
why we are discussing. Well, they've said that he's had no juvenile
no
record.
juvenile record.
So I don't know why, in this context of this shooting, we're discussing violent felons because this was not an act committed by a violent felon. This was an act committed by a person who, thus far, as far as the information that we have, had absolutely no criminal record.
And no one who had a axe to grind with the school. Apparently, sometimes people come into the. We see what happens is you walk into a job and you're targeting coworkers. Because you've got an axe to grind with someone.
Or you feel that someone, you're
Yeah,
disgruntled, you feel that someone has done you wrong.
right.
And thus far, we've received no information
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
regarding.
Any of the teachers, did the administration did anything to this guy? In fact, he attended the high school in the city. and the city is only like 20,000 people. So we're talking a very small town that this occurs in. And what is I guess apparent to everyone is the magnitude of the tragedy, the magnitude, how it again is like terrorism in that it puts fear into us, that we let our children go to school now, that anything can happen to anyone anywhere. And if you go to the mall, if you go any concerts, if you do anything like that, that's out there in the public, that you'll be subject to gun violence. I mean, we've had that fear being real around April 3rd of this year, where people are out and about and gunfire goes off. So, in a way, we live in a society that we say we have rights, and we want to hold those rights close to us, and we want to be able to exercise our rights. However,
But there are limits. There are limits to all of the rights that we have,
sure,
right?
of course there are, but
There's a limit to free speech. Am I allowed to run into a crowded theater and just yell out fire because I have a right to free speech?
yes, you can. What it means is that we will attempt to punish you for doing so. But if I run into a classroom and kill all the kids, what right am I exercising? What really? What am I saying with this statement? What am I doing in this statement? And that's the thing. I'm
Well,
just
it's
saying it
showing
causes
a
fear.
complete disdain for human life and for children.
And for his own, because he takes his own.
No, he didn't actually take
Oh,
his
that's
own
right. The
life.
police shot him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, his life is taken too. Um, but I think the problem is we're going to struggle with trying to figure out why and how something like this happens. And we're never going to get an answer to that.
Well, my question to you, lawman, is making guns more difficult to get for citizens, is that going to prevent mass shootings? And if so, how is
Yes.
that going to prevent mass shootings?
Okay. And I'm going to argue yes. And I'm going to argue it in this way because I'm going to be a mathematician at this time. And I'm going to say that the less opportunities that individuals have to do it can actually reduce the actions that occur,
Why would there be less opportunity?
because we will have less guns in the hands of individuals. Now, let me finish. Because Second Amendment says you can put a gun in your hand if you jump through certain hoops, if you qualify, if you fill out an application, if you pass a background check or waiting period and stuff. So there are ways that guns are going to get into the hands of individuals, and they're going to get a lot of guns in the hands of individuals who would call themselves righteous, who would say that I don't have a criminal record. I should be able to have as many guns as I want to have. And I understand that. And that's why you have to reduce the number of guns in the hands of that individual. If
Except
they're
this person was not a bad individual. So tell
right.
me how, let's say there had been a 10-day waiting period.
Yep.
How was that going to have stopped this if he was set on this is what I'm going to do?
That's what I mean. Is that you can put in all of these, a lot of restrictions, but the one big restriction is going to be uh, one person, one gun. You see, something like that. And then you've got to jump through the waiting and the background check and psychological exam or something. I mean, we're talking about real restrictions have to be put into place. Now, that may not be realistic and agreed upon by everyone, but if mathematically you want to stop the problem from occurring, then you have to reduce the amount of guns that are just out there to be used.
So this was a gun that was lawfully purchased. Are you
Handgun, too.
saying that someone who wants to commit this crime wouldn't be able to purchase a gun on the street? Let's say they
No,
can't
they
buy a
can.
gun legally, but
Yep,
they purchase one
on
on
the
the street.
street.
We know that guns are on the
That's right.
streets.
But the lesser amount of guns on the street, the better.
But what
It's a
you're
math
talking
problem.
about regulates the number of legal guns. It does nothing to regulate the number of illegal guns.
Now, if everybody had one gun and your gun became missing, then that's an illegal gun now, possibly on the street. Now, you first of all, you get no other gun. You see what I'm saying? To replace that one.
So if my gun gets stolen,
That's
your
right. That's
legislation
your.
says I get one gun,
That's right.
and if someone breaks into my home and steals that gun,
Yep.
I never get
You
to
don't get a
purchase
gun.
another gun in my life.
That's right. Because that gun was yours to protect, and you did not do so.
So let me ask you this, using that same analogy.
So,
If let's say we're in a country that only allows one child and they decide that we allow one child, and if your one child is killed
mhm,
or dies,
you
you
don't
don't
get
get to
another
have
one.
any more
That's right.
children. You're okay with that?
Yep. Yep. I'm going to take a highly conservative viewpoint of this and a highly harsh way of handling this,
I don't.
because if you want to stop something, you have to go all out against stopping it. Now, here's something else. How about banning handguns? All right. So you only can have a rifle for hunting purposes.
Let me say one. I don't think your view is a conservative view, because conservatives
They
tend
love
to,
guns.
yes, and so I
That's
would
right.
disagree that your view
I'm not
is
saying
the
anybody gonna pass it, but I'm
no. But
saying
you
if
said
you
I'm
want to,
taking the
that's
conservative view. That's
that's
not
a
the
ultra
conservative view.
conservative in terms of gun control. It's ultra conservative, and I think it's the only thing that you
It's
can do.
actually the opposite of what conservatives want.
So you're saying that's a liberal view of gun control? Let's
It's
put it this way.
it's an extreme view of gun control to
Yes,
say I'm going to
that's right.
limit you to
I'm gonna
one
take.
gun, and if your gun gets stolen,
You don't get
then
another
you
one.
don't get to purchase any.
You don't
But
get handguns at
what
all.
about people who already own multiple guns?
Let's take them. We know if they register them in their name, we can go and grab them and make them
So
turn it in.
you are for a
Total gun ban.
militaristic state that
Total
would
gun
come
ban.
in
Yep.
and take people's
Yep.
guns.
Absolutely.
Well, we
That
are
would
on
clean up
opposite.
society.
That
No,
would
but that.
not
But
clean up
wait.
society, because
Hold on.
how would that have stopped
Yes.
this young man? It would not,
He would
because
never
he
have
would
had
have
a
been
gun.
a. That's not true.
Not
He
true. He
would
wouldn't
have
have been
been
able to buy one and then shoot them a week or two later.
yes, he would have. So you said each person gets to purchase one gun. So this
No,
young
I said
man,
ban all handguns would be the next step.
but let's start with the initial theory
Sure.
of each person gets to purchase one gun.
That's right.
So this young man still would have been able to purchase that one gun and
Right.
still would have been able to effect this horrendous crime. So
Which is
that
why you
does
got to
not
go
fix the
further.
problem.
That's right. That's why you go further by banning the gun itself, or you only allow revolvers. So you can only shoot six at a time. I think it has to be I will say this: forget about conservative, and forget about all that. It's a drastic measure, because if you view 19 dead kids as being drastic, then you gotta put drastic measures in place in order to stop drastic activity. Period. That's the only way it's going to stop. You can discipline a child and say, don't steal. You can beat
I
them. You
don't
can do
believe that
this.
that's going
They're
to
going to
stop
do it.
it, because all sorts of things are banned, and they still methamphetamine, where no one's
That's
supposed
right.
to have it, no one's supposed to use it, yet it is running rampant in this country. The use of fentanyl, it is illegal to use, it is illegal to
Hmm.
have, it is illegal to sell, yet it is being sold in large
Right.
amounts.
Now,
And
where's it coming from? Right. Just like the guns, where's it coming from? Manufacturers, people who are getting the products to make the meth, ban it all. Take it all. Take it all. Drug
how
companies
are you
can't
going to
make
take it off?
fentanyl because drug companies will not be allowed to produce it. Wait a
So
minute.
let
Wait a
me
minute.
say
If you're
this:
producing a dangerous product,
drug companies are not the only ones, and it's my understanding, who are producing the fentanyl. If you're talking about United States drug companies,
yeah,
because there are other countries who are producing fentanyl,
and bring it here.
and it is being brought
I
here.
understand. That's why we have border patrol.
Well,
That's why.
Border
That's
Patrol
why
does
we
not appear
have
to be
Homeland
working.
Security.
They don't appear to be
Well, they
working
need to be
because,
working on doing that.
well, it doesn't
Banning.
appear, let me finish. It doesn't appear to be working because those items are still making their way into the country.
Isn't it
Hold on,
true?
hold
All
on.
right.
So my point is, merely banning something is not going to end it. We do have some comments
Yeah, but hold
in the
on though.
chat.
Before we get to his comments, here's what I'm saying. If you're not trying to ban it, then you're not moving towards solving the problem. Okay. So you say, yeah, stuff will come in. Yeah, I'll agree. Yeah, maybe some guns will be held and things like that. But when they come to light, then they shall be taken. if drugs are being manufactured illegally, then that's what we go after. That's what we spend our police dollars to go after, are the individuals who are manufacturing.
Well, we did have a war on drugs, and it didn't really work so well.
They
So,
didn't define what that war on drugs meant. See, they just said you listen to the tapes nowadays, they had a war on people instead of drugs, really.
and so maybe this becomes a war on people. Let's
Sure.
get to the comments. Moran Tactical says making guns more difficult to get will solve mass shootings the same way that making meth and heroin illegally completely eradicated addiction. And we know that those things did not occur.
No, addiction and
The
gun possession are a
gang
little bit different.
members that shot up Sacramento last month were weeks out of prison and had an illegal machine gun. So I think his point there is that the gun that they
People are
had
gonna have
in that
guns.
shooting was illegal, yet
Right.
somehow
That's right.
people still were able to get
That's right. But if you couldn't manufacture that machine gun, if you caught it at an earlier stage, then it wouldn't have been there on that day. And that's why I'm saying, look, it ain't gonna happen overnight.
Well,
I mean, you put
the
something
problem-
in place and then you exercise the law to keep it out of the
the
place.
problem is that guns already exist,
And that's
so
why we gotta
and
take
there are millions of them.
That's right.
And
And if
you're
they're
not
registered
going
to
to
you,
be able
turn them in.
you're not going to be able to take all of those guns. And even if you take all of the guns of the people that have them registered, there are still going to be guns in the hands
And
of
we'll
people.
get them
Let
when
me
we
finish.
can.
There's still going to be guns in the hands of people who have them illegally.
And
So
then
you're
we'll
not
get them later when their guns come to light.
after they've killed someone.
Yes, because we're killing them now. You're going to kill them now. So why not?
And
After, yeah,
I
if
would
they
just
kill
say
someone, then
again
take
that
it.
the shooting that occurred in Sacramento,
It's a little different.
although there were multiple people who were killed, it appears that shooting arose out of a disagreement between two groups of
Individuals, yeah.
individuals or groups of people. So that did not involve the scenario where someone just went to a location and just started shooting and killing people for no uh, reason whatsoever.
I told you my plan is drastic. And drastic means long. It has to be a long-term drastic plan.
The problem with drastic plans like that is that they never work. So, for example, during Prohibition, when alcohol was illegal and nobody was supposed to have it, the alcohol was still being produced
Yep.
and people were still getting it.
Now,
And the same
I'll tell you
thing
why, though.
would happen with outlawing guns.
I'll tell you why.
I'm going to tell you, let me tell you what I think will help reduce this problem. Again, the hateful rhetoric that we have in this country. And even though this was not a shooting that was based on race, this was still a shooting at a time where such hatred is being shown in our cities, in our communities, by the public against one another. And that needs to stop. Additionally, we need to pay more attention to what is going on with young people and people in general around you. People are now saying, "Oh, we saw the red flags," or there was something about this kid. Well, why didn't anyone reach out to try and find out what was going on with that kid?
Yeah, but see,
We
and
do
here's the
have
thing.
another
Oh, yeah.
comment from A. It says, maybe you're wrong. It took us 400 years to get to this point. We're not going to solve the problem overnight. The first step is to stop young people from getting semi-automatic rifles legally.
Now, here's what I'm saying. I understand that. And you said the country built on hate and we should focus on hate.
I didn't say the country was built on
No,
hate.
no, I'm going to say then the country was built on hate. So hatred and disdain for others, I think, is not going to be sold in the storefront and people buy it because it's something that's ingrained. So the drastic measure of taking out the weapon can work. It can work, but it's going to work over time. You see, it's going to work by a drastic measure of, okay, legally holding individuals. You've got to also sacrifice, and everyone's got to put in. And if everybody puts in, yeah, well, what about the people who are running around who got them? Well, we'll get them when we get them.
Well, I don't want to wait until you get them, because if there are people out here illegally who have guns and those guns aren't going to be taken, I want to be able to defend my person as well as my home against a potential attack by
I
someone
understand.
who has a gun illegally. So by taking my guns,
Yeah.
you are now making me more vulnerable to people who may want to do harm, who have their guns illegally.
Once again, though, Carr, we are working with a bunch of ifs and ifs because if we're taking guns at the time we see them, then we are still maintaining the status quo's, let's say, goal of getting them. Now, if people wanted to shoot you, they're going to shoot you anyway, whether you got your gun on you or not. And
That's not true,
just
because
because you got your gun on you, don't mean that you're going to be
no,
able to
but what it
defend.
does mean is that I have at least a chance to defend, and I'm not. And we're talking also about my home. I'm not talking
19
about
kids,
walking
though.
around out in the streets.
Kids didn't have a chance to defend.
No, they didn't.
Right.
They did not.
They don't have a chance to defend. So that is not going to be the thing. Well, I didn't have a
But what
chance to
you're
defend.
saying is not going to solve the problem. We have a comment that says murder existed before there were guns, and murder will
Sure.
exist long after guns are supplanted by phasers and lightsabers.
And murder was sanctioned by the state a lot of times, also in the past, and done by the state and the government. So murder is murder. And I'm just saying that if you want to reduce murder, if it's from these guns and these situations, then you gotta eliminate them altogether. See, it's drastic and it's easy to say, yeah, but if you take mine, I can't produce myself. Yeah, but that's not the issue today. The issue is we need to just take them all. And then as they come up, we take them. We continue to take.
And
And after a while, we become a gunless society.
I don't believe that we will become a gunless society with the number of guns that are already out there. I don't believe
We
that
can
there.
move towards it.
I don't believe that there is any way that the government would be able to confiscate every single weapon that is out there. And if they confiscate the weapons of people who are law abiding citizens, all they're doing is setting the law abiding citizens up to be victims of those who possess guns illegally, because they will know I can go into this house because there is no gun in this house because the government has taken that gun, but I can take my illegal gun, go into that house, and force everyone to bend to my will. So I'm going to have to disagree
I
with
would,
you
I
on
kind of,
that
you
point.
know, if you had me weigh that, I would say, okay, go into that house, but please don't go into the school and kill the children.
So you're okay
Please
with
don't
them
do that.
coming into
Yeah.
my house and killing my children?
If it prevented 50 kids from being killed, come, I mean, I'm just, didn't I tell you this is drastic?
But it's
Okay.
a drastic that's not going to
But
work.
every day, though, people are not just busting into homes and stuff, but they
Exact. I'm
are.
sorry. Yes, they are. There are
Okay.
burglaries and robberies
Yes.
that occur every single
But what I'm
day.
saying is, we don't call someone coming into a home or shooting another person a mass shooting. They're not killing the innocent children. If we want to stop that type of thing, the killing in public of mass people, that's what we have to do.
And I'm
Because
going to
even the
say
good
that there
person with a
is
gun
killing in
gonna lose it.
public. There's killing in public that occurs every day.
Yeah, I
Unfortunately,
could
it may
stab and
not
do
be.
other
No, I'm not
things.
even talking about that. I'm saying with firearms,
Right.
with
Domestic violence, things like that.
and with just young
Just
people
people
shooting
hating. That's right. Gang
other young
violence.
people, and
That's
that
right.
is usually not done with guns that are legally purchased.
You're right, which is why it's those incidents that come up that allow us to now take what is there. I'm just saying,
Taking the gun after the
after,
person is dead
yes,
does not help that family.
it helps the next family. It helps
It
people down
honestly
the road.
doesn't, because honestly, I believe there have been studies that have shown that once most people who commit murder are not likely to murder again. Now, I know you can point out specific instances
Sure.
where someone has killed when they're a serial killer, but the general person that we sentence to prison for killing usually does not kill again. So taking that person's gun usually does not prevent anything.
But we're also taking them off the street too in that situation. And I'm saying, if in fact we are going to stop mass killings from the good people who own the guns or people who get the guns from the good people, then the good people can't have the guns.
Well, the problem is we don't always know who is good or bad. We like to
That's right.
think, when we were kids, we
That's
played
right.
good guys and bad guys. But the thing is, we don't always know who the bad guy is.
That's
The
why we treat
bad
them all
guy
as
may
bad guys.
the bad guy may be someone who looks as normal as the 18-year-old who lives next to you. We are again at the end of a episode of Courtside. We have not solved this problem. We
No, we are
certainly,
not going to
as
solve
a
it.
society, this problem is not going to be solved overnight. But one thing that we can do is stop with the hatred. Stop hating someone because they look different than you. Stop hating someone because they're a different religion than you. Maybe try and learn about them. You don't have to agree with someone to not hate them. We're all human beings, we're all on this planet, and we all want to survive and live the best lives as possible. We want our children to have good lives.
And I will only leave you with this. I talk about drastic measures just so that you can start thinking, because I don't want a reaction. I don't even want to hear really another idea. I want to know, then what drastic measure can you come up with and can you take that will help out? Because obviously we're not coming up with anything and nobody has a plan, and politicians are not going to legislate our way out of this. So unless we drastically do something, we are not going to change.
Well,
And
one other thing is, a lot of funding in schools for mental health for counselors was taken away. And maybe if we pay more attention to children in school, and I'm talking about the young man who did this, if there had been more counselors in his school, more available, and not necessarily mental health, sometimes someone just needs someone to talk to and they don't have that at home. So we need to look at what we're doing in our schools. Automatically putting armed guards in our schools also is not the answer.
right.
But we are going to leave you with those thoughts for tonight. We thank you again for spending your Friday evening with us here for these 30 minutes at Courtside. We again apologize about the initial technology
Yes.
issue that we had.
And
Um,
we want you to vote. We
yes,
want you to get out there and register to vote so that you have a say, at least in the issues that come before you on a ballot.
you have a say in who your sheriff is and who your district attorney is.
Who a judge is, who your supervisors are, who your city council are.
Yes.
So go out and use your voice.
Thank
So,
you again.
yes, we thank you.
And our prayers are with the families of those who lost their loved ones.
As always, it is for any loved ones that are lost.